Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Barbara Hamley. Welcome to Another View, coming to you on our new air day, Thursdays at noon. Thank you so much for joining us. Lots to discuss with our Another View roundtable, including what's next between Iran and the U.S. after the Trump administration's assassination of top Iranian General Qasem Soleimani and Iran's retaliation. Is war still possible? And what will the decade of the 20s mean in terms of race relations? Alvean, Daun, Carol, and Allison are here with some thoughts. The Another View Roundtable is next. Stay tuned.
Discussing today's topics from an African-American perspective, this is Another View.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Another View. I'm Barbara Hamley. No need to look at your calendar. It's Thursday, the new air day for Another View, and we're happy to join you. If you tuned in for Watching America with Dr. Alan Campbell, stay with us today and catch him tomorrow on his new air day, Fridays at noon. Happy New Year to our Another View Roundtable. Hello, ladies. How are you? Alvean Lyons is Virginia's relationship expert and host of the Lions Den, heard on Hampton University Radio.
Yes,
Happy New Year, darling. How are you?
Happy New Decade to you guys.
Absolutely. She's busy collecting our personal property and business taxes right about now in the city of Norfolk. Norfolk City Treasurer Daun Hester. How are you?
I am wonderful.
And Happy New Year to you.
Thank you, and to all of you.
Not sure if classes are back in session, but her political science class will be on fire this semester. Please welcome political science professor Carol Pretlow from Norfolk State University.
Well, thank you. Good to be here.
Good. We're happy to have you here, and Happy New Year to you. And she's a clean comedian and an entrepreneur and owner of Black Please Coffee, Ms. Allison Moore. Hello there.
Hey, y'all.
Happy New Year. And you know what? I just learned, see, Allison, I didn't realize you were live. So I apologize, Facebook, for licking my tongue. It was geared towards Allison, but she did it.
She did it.
So we are live on Facebook.
See how they do me, y'all?
We are live on Facebook in case you want to check us out there too. So there you go. So ladies, we got a lot to talk about. So let's jump into it, all right? So Friday, January 3rd, President Trump successfully orchestrated the assassination of Iran General Qasem Soleimani and others at an airport in Baghdad. Tuesday, January 7th, Iran retaliates with ballistic missiles striking military bases in Iraq. No Iraqis or Americans were killed, and everyone for the moment is in stand-down position. So, Allison, I want to start with you because I want to know, as you absorb all of this from a millennial perspective, and I know you don't speak for all millennials, but just in general, was this something that concerned your generation, that people were talking about, or was it kind of whatever, just let me know when the movie comes out? I mean, in other words, is it something you guys are really talking about?
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about it, but there is an element of, just tell me when they call. When we get our letter in the mail, then we'll just deal with it when it gets here. But, like you said, I'm not speaking for everybody. I do see a lot of people, talking about it. And there are a lot of people like, we knew this was going to happen. Y'all knew this. We was telling y'all he crazy. So, it's a lot of Black Twitter, some funny stuff. Good. There's some creative people. You want to know what the artists are? Go to Black Twitter. They're creative.
There they are.
It's some funny memes and things going on. But there is an element of like, okay, y'all, just we'll deal with it when it comes.
I asked that question because, Dawn, I'm going to turn this to you because you and I are a little more seasoned in terms of Allison, at least. But the night of the retaliation, as well as the night of finding out about the killing of Soleimani, I got that kind of pit in my stomach feeling of, like what happened with 9/11 or like what happened with weapons of mass destruction. So I'm wondering, do we have a different perspective on it?
I still have the pit. And even though it appears there's a stand down, I don't think there is a stand down. Mm-hmm. I think that in Iran and in other of their circles and their sphere of influence and other terrorist organizations, that something is occurring. What it will be, I don't know. Don't know that it will be missiles. You know, we're talking about the cyber attacks and all those kind of things. I do think that those are possibilities that I don't know that we will be able to deter. And so I would think that all systems across the country, whether it's public, private, our institutions, all those, that the IT departments are on high alert, trying to make sure that, you know, we're catching anything or everything that might be coming through. You know, we've already had local people to hack government systems. So I think that's a way that they're going to come at us, because I don't know what I don't know, but I don't think Iran wants to harm U.S. citizens.
Good.
I think they do want to harm the person who gave the order. And so I'm sure that security is on high alert for him as well. But so which way it's going to turn, I really don't know. You know, just wish it had never occurred. And, you know, sometimes when prior administrations make decisions, because prior administrations made decisions not to take him out, there was a reason for that. And when John Kerry, at that time Secretary of State, helped to negotiate the agreement that we had, things were kind of okay. I do think that there's some Russia influence in this that's not being talked about a lot, because, you know, if we get out of Iraq, that's a whole lot of space. That's a whole lot of territory that has just now been turned over. So it is a scary time.
It's Alvean. It's the idea of helping our community in particular to understand where we fit in this global arena that all of us are playing in, because ultimately whatever happens will impact or could potentially impact all of us. I did hear on NPR this morning the ambassador, thank you, the ambassador from Iran saying that we're done. Our retaliation is done.
Finished, right.
However, we can't speak for others who are proxies, who are our friends, who may be out there. We, you know, whatever, we're done, but we can't tell you whether they're done.
Right. I mean, it's just such a precarious situation to be in the first place, because many of us are questioning what was the imminent threat that required such a heightened response. Nobody's arguing the character of the man. You know, nobody's arguing
of Soleimani,
and that's what I'm referring to, of Soleimani. Nobody's arguing the impact of the gross violations of humankind that he was at the forefront of. Nobody's arguing any of that. What people are arguing is, what was the special intelligence that suggested that this needed to happen right now, right? So the intention behind it is the thing that's very much in question, nationally speaking. As far as how it's going to impact our communities, the thing that is always concerning for communities of color is the disproportionate representation of us in the worst possible situations. And so, you know, we've said before on other shows that when America gets a cold, the Black community gets pneumonia. So if we start talking about, which is really what Allison was kind of referencing, if we start talking about potential drafts, who's going to get snatched up inside of that? Because it's not going to be the kid whose parent can make sure that, you know, they have medical documentation of their bone spurs. Okay. It's not going to be that parent. Know what that is. Okay. It's not going to be the parent that is able to talk to their best friend who happens to be a pulmonologist to say that the child is exhibiting asthma symptoms. Okay. It's going to be the person with the least amount of access, the least amount of opportunity, the least amount of connections, the least amount of options that are going to be swept up in whatever decision is ultimately made. So when we start,
and
go ahead.
to a point, to that point, because it struck me when I was watching coverage of the 82nd Airborne out of Fort Bragg in North Carolina, and they're getting on the plane. And my husband and I both looked and went, where are the people of color that are in a part of the 82nd Airborne? I mean, they were not the ones marching on the plane, meaning the elitist of our military. But to your point, when it comes to boots on the ground,
Absolutely. Who's on the forefront?
who's going to be on the forefront?
Whose bodies are going to be on the forefront is the question. And we have to understand that historically in America, we're not just talking about this presidency or this administration. Historically in America, too often our brown bodies have been bullet shields. So we have to understand that politics matters. What we tend to abdicate in terms of our responsibilities of being part of the national discussion and being part of voter registration. And that is not about voting Democrat or Republican. It's about being engaged so there's a representation of your values and your issues and your concerns that are inside of the administration. And that does not necessarily run along party lines, but there is a fundamental responsibility that we have to have as Americans and Americans of color to recognize that decisions will continue to get made that are going to impact us, that are not going to be in our best interest if we are not part of the conversation.
So, Carol, you deal with students, with the age range of those students that would be going off to war if, in fact, there were such a war. How do you keep them engaged and to a point where they recognize Alvean's point, which is we have to pay attention?
Well, first of all, as a political scientist, it's a day by day by day. And what I do is tell them a little catchphrase, expect the unexpected. If you're going to follow the progression of a textbook and that's all, then you're going to be out of the loop. So when I come in the morning, it might be something that's textbook oriented, but indeed it might be something out of the blue. Now, the whole idea of expect the unexpected, when we decided to range that attack, I said, okay, this is what's going to happen. Our president is going to figure out a way to get the attention back on him. And that's exactly what he did.
From the impeachment, all the impeachment coverage.
He was, upset by that. Nancy Pelosi was not going to move. He could call her any kind of names he wanted to. She was very firm and directed. And I said, now let's see what happens. So what he does is take something that none of us were thinking about. I mean, sure, Iraq and Iran are always in the loop, but we weren't expecting that now. And the failure to address the problems that had come from, well, like they say, back in the day, and getting to this point, I said, this is him diverting the media attention. Because the next morning on the New York Times and the Washington Post, you didn't see impeachment news. What you saw was these attacks. And so that's what I tell them to be aware of and be prepared for, and to start with constitutional analysis and understand that framework. And here we go, the War Powers Resolution.
So not only is the Roundtable award-winning, but we also have the award-winning Claville Report with Dr. Eric Claville at Norfolk State University. And I did ask Eric to call in because he has said on this show on several occasions, he has talked about how a war president
Cannot be impeached.
One can't be removed, and also that it helps them to get reelected. So, Eric, how are you? Happy New Year to you.
Wonderful. Happy New Year to you, Barbara, the round table, and all the listeners.
Eric.
Thank you for joining us on our new day on Thursdays. Feels good. Feels good. So I want to bring, you heard Carol and her alluding to or very plainly stating the fact that she feels that part of all of this is to divert our attention from the president, who is an impeached president at this point, but has not had a trial to talk about removal. Your thoughts on that, because you've talked about how war can help one stay in office.
Sure. So I think that most of the world was shocked when the attacks were launched against the Iranian general by the president fairly unilaterally. As we know, that the justifications for this launching has been moved, seem like every day, if not every hour, as to the reason why. Mm-hmm. And the briefing itself that was given to members of Congress, even after the briefing, there were many left still in the dark as to why.
Well, there was one particular Republican senator who was very angry. I can't think of his name right now, but he was very frustrated about the briefing because he felt that it didn't give him the information that he needed in order to make smart decisions moving forward.
You're right. I think it was Senator Lee out of Utah.
Yes, yes.
And he was very, very upset about it, very adamant, which he said that the briefing actually sealed his decision to vote on the restriction of war powers, which is going to be introduced in a resolution by Senator Kane here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Mm-hmm. But as it relates to this president, and now a lot of news outlets are looking at history, which I'm glad they are, and comparing what happened during the time of the Clinton impeachment and also the Trump impeachment. Mm-hmm. Almost 20 years to the date, when Clinton was about to be impeached, he launched attacks in Iraq. Mm-hmm. A few days after Trump was impeached, he also launched rockets in Iraq. Now,
Iraq and Iran can't win. I don't mean to chuckle, but it's just wow. When you look at the history, the perspective, that's incredible.
Yeah, and both sides were claiming the same thing. Distraction from impeachment. Now, one thing that I mentioned on a previous show in October of last year was Clinton's decision to launch attacks in Kosovo. Now, strategically, that happened after the impeachment trial. The impeachment and the trial lasted from December of 98 for Clinton until February 99. We got into Kosovo in officially March of 1999, about 1 month after his acquittal. However, we were, Madeleine Albright, General Wesley Clark, and other advisors were saying that we should have gotten in earlier based upon what Slobodan Milosevic was doing in Yugoslavia, the slaughter with the Serbs and the Albanians, and there, so forth and so on. But he was distracted. Clinton was distracted and all consumed by the impeachment trial. And we're seeing the same thing here where our president is distracted and all consumed. And this gives an advantage to, I believe, our enemies across the globe to do things that they would like to do because we know that our president is distracted by this. And also the country itself. We are... there is a distraction element with impeachment and the trial itself, and I think a lot of American people are wondering what policies are being passed to help them, the average citizen. As it relates to war itself, again, as early as 2016, Barbara, I've talked about an impending conflict in the Middle East, more specifically in that exact area. I believe it will take place from more likely in Syria and also northern Iraq and also western Iran, but more so in those areas. So I think this is definitely laying the framework. I think it's an escalation of the tensions in that area. I think that the rocket attacks that we sent were ill-advised. They were unnecessary. And it's put a lot of which was talked about before by the roundtable, a lot of our military in unnecessary conflict and danger. So, yeah.
So, Eric, do you think that as Daun was talking about, the proxies stepping forward for whatever is next, as opposed to Iran itself?
What you mean the proxies? What are you referring to?
I'm talking about in terms of other terrorist groups and so forth that are alive and well in that region. And if they decide, okay, well then if Iran, we got you back, we'll go ahead and do whatever is going to be done in terms of escalating this.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that because in talking with several colleagues about this, what I mentioned was one thing that the rocket attacks did to kill the general, it unified Iran again. Keep in mind there was a youthful uprising and protest in Iran.
And just a couple weeks ago, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
But now everyone says that we are
The enemy.
Soleimani.
Yeah.
You know, we are going to fight. They had sound bites of families, women saying that, you know, I run a business here, I run this and run that, but we will stand and fight. So people are now united in Iran against the United States and also Israel, our closest ally. And in addition to that, I think that what we have to be more concerned with, especially in the United States, is what we call sleeper cells.
Yeah.
Individuals that are here in the nation waiting to be activated to carry out terrorist attacks. Those who have assimilated within American society and so forth. We do see reports of individuals of Iranian descent being held at our borders, coming into the country, you know, and there are reports of those who were in the country of Iranian descent and others that talked about their being sent here to scope out areas and intel for attacks, more so the New York area and D.C. area. So there are very reliable reports of that and reporting of them by investigative journalists. So I encourage our listening public to look at those articles and educate yourselves on them. But I do believe that there are other proxies in that area of Iraq, because if you notice, the government of Iraq, the parliament voted to oust the United States from their country. And keep in mind that Iraq itself is really made up of three ethnic groups that are kind of put together for the purposes of the last colonial ruler. So they were never really meant to live together and share a border, but they're working it out. But now they're all united. And in that area of the world, a lot of them are united against the United States. And I remind our listeners that there is chaos and instability in most of the Middle Eastern countries, in large part because of our intervention in removing their rulers or dictators, whether it be Tunisia, whether it be Libya with Gaddafi, whether it be Egypt with Mubarak, whether it be Syria, Iraq, whether it be Yemen, Oman, or Qatar, and try to in Bahrain. So there is a lot of instability there, a lot of chaos, a lot of anger towards the United States. So I do agree with you, Barbara, with the proxy.
Okay, hang on the line for just a minute, Eric. We're going to take a call from Michael in Norfolk. Hi, Michael. You're on the air.
Thank you very much, Barbara. I confirmed with a very famous veteran newsman last night that Iran is reporting to its own citizens that the rocket attack, which we've all been talking about, killed 80 Americans. Now, we all know that Canadians are North Americans. We often refer to Mexicans as Central Americans. So did the Iranians keep their promise to their own people that they would avenge the blood of Soleimani and do it by killing Americans?
So you're saying that these people could have possibly have been Canadian or Mexican? Am I understanding you correctly?
No, I'm saying, well, yes.
Yes, in terms of using the word American attached to that.
Exactly.
All right, let me get some response from our roundtable and from our expert on the Middle East that we have on the phone, Eric.
I mean, right. So I heard the caller. I believe he's asking, is there kind of a spin going on in Iran?
Yes, that's exactly what he's asking.
They did kill Americans. Right now, there's been no reports that any Americans or really no one was really hurt by the retaliatory attack. And this was according to our United States government. However, as it relates to killing other individuals, that I haven't heard any reports or read any reports that others were actually killed in these specific attacks. As it relates to the assertion that there is spin, categorizing Canadians and also individuals from the country of Mexico and Central America as Americans, I think that would be a stretch for Iran citizens and those in the Middle East to say that, because most people refer to America as Americans. Canada refer to themselves as
Canadians. Yeah.
And the Mexicans refer to themselves as Mexicans, and Central Americans for their specific countries,
Exactly.
whether it be El Salvadorian, Honduras, Guatemalan, or whatever the case may be.
Okay. Thank you so very much. Eric LaVille, he is the director, now I know I'm going to get this wrong, for the Center of Public Policy of African American Public Policy. Is that right?
That's it.
Yeah,
That is
got
correct.
it.
Yeah.
At Norfolk State University. Eric, we'll have you on real soon for another Claville report.
Thank you so much.
Thank
God
you. We appreciate you. And if you're just joining us, we're talking about current events with the Another View Roundtable. Relationship expert Alvean Lyons, Norfolk City Treasurer Daun Hester, NSU political science professor Carol Pretlow, and comedian and entrepreneur Allison Moore. I'm going to move us on to our next topic, which is sanctuary cities, Second Amendment sanctuary cities and counties and areas. So Virginia Beach is the latest city in Hampton Roads to declare itself a Second Amendment constitutional city, or sanctuary city as others have called it, which means local governments will not use local resources to prosecute anti-gun laws. It's largely a ceremonial declaration because state law overrides local government laws. But meanwhile, the General Assembly went into session last night with an address from Governor Ralph Northam. The newly elected Democratic Majority Assembly has vowed to enact stricter gun laws. The Black community has what some call an epidemic of gun-related murders and shootings. So will any of this help stop the killings in our community? And before I come to you, Alvean, because I'm going to come to you first on that thought, I did pull up the areas in our state of Virginia, Commonwealth of Virginia. And I just circled a few of them. There are 87 out of 95 counties that are Second Amendment, that have approved Second Amendment sanctuary constitutional cities, okay? So there are 87 out of 95 counties, 13 out of 38 independent cities, and 21 towns that have adopted Second Amendment sanctuary resolutions. Accomack is one that's in our area, okay? I just pulled out the ones from this area. Chesapeake, Franklin City, Gloucester, Isle of Wight, James City County, Matthews, Middlesex, Northampton on the Eastern Shore, Poquoson, Southampton, Suffolk, Surrey, Virginia Beach, and York. Last night, I believe it was Hampton that withdrew its proposal that was out on the table. The one thing I noticed about all of those areas that I mentioned, they are not predominantly African-American areas. But the gun violence is happening in our community.
Right. And I always have really mixed feelings about conversations around gun rights and us as a people. Okay. And I have to be honest about that it is not, I am one of those who fundamentally believe in responsible gun ownership. I am not an absolutist, not even close. I grew up with guns in my house, but my dad was a hunter. So in addition to being a, white collared, buttoned up guy Monday through Friday, everything that we ate for Christmas and Thanksgiving, he killed. So, but because he was an immigrant, that's what they did in his country. So he also didn't believe in fishing for game purposes. You fished and you ate what you caught. So he really believed in that. He gardens, he hunts, he's one of those who believe in the land, right? So I don't have any issue with responsible gun ownership at all. I do have issue with weapons of war on the street, as if that has anything to do with just basic personal protection and or being able to provide for yourself in terms of food and shelter. Okay. So let me be clear about where my position is where that's concerned. Let me also say that in the Black community in particular, when it's easier to get a gun than it is to get a good quality book, we have a problem. So the problem is far more systemic than sometimes we're really willing to address. That if the greatest answer to addressing violence is opportunity. And when there is a deficit of opportunity, then people feel like they need to protect their own power, and sometimes in the worst kinds of ways. So I really want the conversation around gun violence to become something very different when we're talking about it in our community. I'm not saying that nationally we don't need to have, a conversation about it, but when we're talking about it in our community, there are unique factors that contribute to the hopelessness and powerlessness mixed with access to the worst kinds of force and power is only going to yield pain. So I want us to talk about it differently. Are we giving our kids real options? Are we giving them real hope? Is there any sense that I can choose between power that's behind a gun versus power in terms of being able to make real decisions and have real autonomy inside of my life? Do they really have that choice more times than not? And too often, that is not a real choice in the most at-risk areas inside of our communities.
Daun, Chief Boone says that pull your mic down so we'll be able to hear you.
Thank you, ma'am. I was right.
I know you have a lot to say about it. That's why I'm coming to you. But Chief Boone says that gun violence in the Black community is a health problem, that it is a public health issue, that we need to be dealing with it differently, and that gun laws and so forth is not necessarily the right way that we need to be doing to get these guns out of our community.
That is correct. And so we have to address it in many ways.
Yep.
So in the urban areas where we have Black on Black killing crimes, assaults, we do have to deal with it so that we are helping young people, young families to grow, to be better, to do better, to have better. And that's one of the reasons that Chief Boone always talks about, it's easy to get a gun than to get a job.
Yep.
But even in him saying that, if young people want to try to get a job, we also have to make sure they have the skills to do the job.
Absolutely.
And then keep the job.
Absolutely.
And then get to work. And so that creates a whole public health issue of, if you really want to lift your community up and lift your citizens up so that they're able to do better, so they can contribute more, then yes, we have to look at it in a more holistic way. And so, we have to do a lot with de-escalation of individuals, young people, mamas too, daddies too. We can't always get emotionally tied and knotted up. And we go straight to the roof.
Yeah.
And then we don't make decisions.
Why do y'all do that, Allison?
We don't make decisions. Don't answer it yet. Think about it.
Don't answer. Think about it.
We don't make decisions well when we go up so fast.
Absolutely.
In fact, there's some work being done now, and that was one of the conversations I was having on my way here, where we're testing individuals wearing watches that shows their heart level and heart rate, so that you can track your emotions and feel yourself rising. And if you're beginning to learn things that you can do as your rate goes up, then you can de-escalate yourself.
Wow.
There is some legislation that one of the groups I'm on, Black Women for Positive Change,
National group out of Washington,
yes,
D.C.
Congresswoman Gwen Moore has introduced legislation. We have 25 sponsors so far to teach de-escalation and how you can do that. So hopefully we can get that moving at the congressional level. But so that's the in the community getting rid of the Black on Black violence. But we also have to have rules that state that if somebody comes into your house and steals your guns, you must file a report. Because then if you don't, I think we need to do something with you, because you didn't report it and now your gun has been used to hurt someone else. And I think you would need to be responsible for that. That to me is responsible gun legislation. You had a theft, they took your gun, let the police know, so we know it's on the street.
And you know it's on the street, and you also know that you weren't
so
involved.
That's what our governor and some of our senators and delegates are proposing, because there's really some ridiculous stuff out there. A part of one of the things that our Republican delegates, one of the bills that's in place now is that anybody can carry, this is probably going to be killed, but that anybody can carry a gun anywhere and you don't have to get a concealed weapons permit. So they want to get rid of the concealed weapons permit, period. If you got a gun, carry a gun, wherever you go, you can have it. That's an issue.
That's one that's being proposed?
That is being proposed now. It will be discussed and be debated in the session that started yesterday.
Wow.
In the session that started yesterday, and if you read the paper this morning, there was discussion about the rules. Every time we open session, we have to lay out the rules of how we're going to operate. Well, now that there's a Democratic majority, the Democrats get to work with the Republicans to set the rules. The rules were not discussed yesterday because in the rules when the House was controlled by Republicans, they said that the delegates could bring their guns on the floor.
Oh, wow.
And that's in the rules. So we have, if you're an elected official, you can come in on the floor and you can have your gun. Okay? So, right.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's in the rules.
So that's in the rules currently?
Currently. And so the temporary rules that they adopted yesterday allow that. Today, I'll be on this phone watching the discussion and the debate today because that's a part of the reason why they didn't vote on new rules yesterday.
Because they want to change that.
It was a historic day.
Got you.
It was a historic day with Eileen coming in and with Louise coming in as the president and House Speaker and all those things that didn't want to take away from the day for that debate.
And when we say historic day, let's put that in context for our listeners. So go ahead.
So yesterday in the Virginia General Assembly, the first female and the first person of Jewish faith was elected as the Speaker of the House in the House of Delegates. In the Senate, the first President pro tem, black female, was elected in the Senate yesterday, our Senator Louise Lucas.
Yes.
So yesterday was historic all around. It was
Not
just
to mention
marvelous.
that the entire General Assembly is the most diverse General
And
Assembly
that
it's
it's
ever
ever
been.
been. Right. So it was just a wonderful day. We have the first female clerk of the House. So it's just an overwhelming day, really emotional. But the reason they didn't discuss those rules because they're going to be debating today. We're not going to have this. So it's going to be really challenging. But that's just for people to carry their guns on the floor. But they also want people to carry their guns anywhere.
Wherever.
So back to the sanctuary city, it doesn't mean anything. So you can vote for it. It won't hold up anywhere.
It won't hold up
It
anywhere.
doesn't hold any water anywhere. It's really, I think, more for local elected officials to be able to say that we're supporting Second Amendment rights that our citizens want us to uphold. Well, by law, you have to do that anyway. So they're not getting anything except that it says something.
So is this being pushed more by the NRA? I mean, behind it, or do we just think it's
the NRA? We have a lot of
just
gun
in
owners
general
here.
gun owners? Well, and I know we have a lot of gun owners here. Yeah.
And they just don't want us to come in. I mean, the governor said it. We're not going to come in your house and take your guns.
Right.
We don't want to do that. But we do want to do background checks. We do want to be able to, and when I say we, I'm talking about the legislation that's being presented.
Sure.
We want to know that if you abused your spouse, wife, girlfriend,
or husband,
Right.
or husband, right? Thank you very much. That you can't go get a gun,
Right. Yeah.
until everything is resolved, because you can get a gun and go hurt them. So there are things like that I think I'm sure will pass, but it'll be a lot of debate on that. And I really don't want that to be the main thing that we talk about, because there's a lot in the budget that has been proposed. However, it's going to be the one
gonna
that's
be a
front
big-
and center,
yeah.
because it's going to be.
Allison, what's the feeling from the millennial perspective in terms of guns and I mean, do you guys think that people should be able to own guns and use and utilize them without any kind of regulation or and particularly for our community?
No, I don't think that we should own them without any regulation. Absolutely not. There's some nuts out here in these streets. So no. But I want one. I'm gonna get me one. That's my 2020 bucket list.
That's on your 2020 bucket list?
But all of this is like extremely fascinating to me. I've been learning. So I already told y'all, this is my learn session. Because when you sent me the list, so like, let's contribute to the topics. I'm like, oh, it's January. Let's talk about weight loss. Like, no, man. No, man. You don't want to talk about saving money? I saw this meme or this calendar of how we can save money before the end of the year. So I'm like, I'm in school. This is my mom from school. But yeah, we have one in our home. We're concealed weapons permit situation. Thank you. So yeah, I definitely I agree that though there needs to be some regulations. I don't like the idea of not having that and just everybody walking around with guns. I'm like, ooh, that gave me anxiety. Here I gotta start sweating.
That makes me nervous.
What's the policy on? I don't even know this on college campuses. I mean,
well,
I know you got to be 18, but legally.
But I think it's in compliance with local and state regulations. Now, the interesting thing is, a few years ago there was a debate about teachers and faculty being able to carry weapons. Okay? And I kind of laugh about this because we had a discussion in one of my American government classes, and it was evenly divided. But the students voted unanimously that I shouldn't have a gun.
Hold on, the shade. You let them cuff you like that, Dr. Pretlow?
Your temperament, you lose your temper too quickly, and you just grab a gun and shoot us because we aren't paying attention. So, on a serious note, there was a realization that there should be some safeguards, that yes, maybe people should be able to carry guns, but still there should be a process by which they are approved and monitored.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Then just in full disclosure, I grew up in a gun owning household too. My dad was a police officer, so we were taught. There was a in their headboard he had little cabinets, and we were taught that when the gun was in the cabinet and the door was closed, you did not touch it.
Absolutely.
And because I listened to people talking about, well, you have to lock the gun, and I believe in safety, and don't misunderstand me. But in our household, it really was not an issue because you were taught early on to respect it and respect what it was about.
Absolutely.
I came from we didn't have a gun at all in my house growing up. And
this is Allison Moore speaking.
Hey, y'all. And in my husband's household, they did. And so he was like, we getting a gun. I'm like, no, we're not. We're not. You're not allowed. So it took some years and some talking and some, so hearing you say that's, and now I'm watching my kids. It's not a thing for them, because they know not to touch it. That's dad's gun. Right. Don't touch it.
I think it's all in the attitude and the way and the things that you teach. Yeah, and it's really important to do that.
Your kids appropriately.
Right.
And like for instance, even growing up in a gun-owning household, and we had shotguns in our house, so it wasn't handguns. You just kind of aim and shoot. You're blowing everything up. But my husband actually wanted at some point to get a handgun, but because I had so many teenagers running in and out of my house, we were that house where everybody hung out. I actually opted not to have a gun in the house because I didn't want to be responsible for some curious teenager, some 13-year-old who was like, oh, my dad has one of these and you just do this with it, crazy stuff happens. And then somebody's kid gets hurt, and there's certain apologies you never want to give, so we opted not to do it. We actually are in the process of learning how to appropriately use guns in the home, going to the range, learning how to shoot appropriately, all of those things now that everybody is older. But I actually chose not to do it because I had too many crazy little boys running in and out of my house that I didn't feel safe that I can ensure that not only did my kids respect the power of a gun, but I couldn't speak for everybody else's kids being able to do that. So, we actually opted not to for safety reasons.
Until later.
Yep. I do think, for myself, I had to learn how to shoot.
Yeah, I did too.
I didn't want one.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think I want one, but
Apparently you have one.
I didn't. I just wanted to understand the power of the different types of guns.
Yes.
And guns are powerful.
Oh my goodness.
They are meant to kill.
You know,
Even
recoil.
the hand-
Because I was going to say, if you've never shot a gun,
absolutely.
that
Even
recoil is unbelievable.
Right.
So a lot of people are telling me now, like I'm at this place where I have some friends that are like, okay, you need to redo on your women's self-defense and you need to go to the range, Allison.
Yeah.
'Cause I got a lot of people that they just come, I don't know who they are. I don't know if they're for me, they're against me. You know, I'm out, people know me, I don't know them. And that's been a real conversation with, going, you got to figure this out.
Yeah.
But it just makes me nervous because I'm like you. I do go. I'm like, oh, I need that watch because I am like, what you mean? You sneeze, you like, bless you. What you mean, bless you? I'm like, oh my God, calm down. Everybody would be dead. I'm like, oh my bad. Oh, we was playing. Okay,
Right. Too late.
Too late.
Yep. One time,
And there's some things you can't take back.
Right.
I recommended the chief one time. I said, "Well, chief, can't we take young people to the range so we can teach them how to shoot?" He looked at me. He said, "Girl, they already shooting." I said, "Well, if we get them young,
Yeah, maybe
where
we're
we're teaching them
teaching them
to be
appropriately, be responsible and respectful.
then maybe we can begin to change that culture of just blowing each other, shooting or something."
He wasn't feeling it, huh?
Oh, not at all. Not at all. That was not a good
I must say
suggestion.
that I miss the generation of fisticuffs. I really do.
Yeah.
Yeah, there
where-
was once upon a time where you just took it out.
What is
And
that?
just took it out.
folks just,
Fisticuffs, where you actually just said,
You
"I'll
just
meet you
fight.
outside,"
So
and
we're
you
just
just
gonna
fight. You don't shoot. You don't
And the
stab.
respect was based on whoever won.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Like, I miss that.
I was like, this
Yes, she did say, "What a fisticuff."
I miss that. I really miss that. And let me
all
be
right,
honest
babe.
about something
It's all right.
else, because I have friends in all kinds of places, both low and high. Okay? And one of the things that some of my friends who have been behind bars said was that they are so glad that they grew up I'm in my early 40s. They are so glad that they grew up in a generation where men had to learn how to fight, because when you get to jail, there's no guns. So what's happening is a lot of these young boys who are getting locked up never learned how to really fight. So they can't handle themselves behind bars because they thought their strength was their ability to pull a trigger without any concern for life. But once you deal with the consequences of that terrible decision, you got to come in here where we actually know how to fight. So they're getting beat up in jail all the time because they don't know how to fight.
Wow, I hadn't even thought about that.
Yep.
Okay, we got 5 minutes left.
Sorry.
And I hate to do this, but I just want each of you just to take a minute or so to just say where you think we're going to be in the 20s in terms of race relations. Are we erasing the dividing line, or are we drawing it even stronger?
I'm gonna go first because I can
Okay,
get mine
go.
out. Because
Yes,
when you
ma'am.
put that question, I was like, the 20s, like the roaring 20s.
Yes, you did.
I was off. I was like, what do you mean the 20s? So next person.
Wow. This
Okay.
is difficult because I'm kind of in an isolated environment, and I see students every day that I think they're older than I am psychologically because they're calming me down. So I think, and they are explaining their perspective. So my hope is with this new generation that there will be a value in every individual, not associated just with race or ethnicity or religion. So I think
You
it's
have
coming.
hope.
I
Okay.
have hope.
All right, Dawn.
Well, I'm going to always have hope. However, young people are raised by people who are racist and prejudiced, and that includes black, white, Asian, everybody else. So it's up to us who are raising young people to look at ourselves, because that's the only way we're going to change it. We have to not fear one another because our numbers are changing, or we're now going to be in the minority versus the majority, in order for that to occur. And so I think it's going to be worse before it's going to be better. And we need to prepare and work through that And
So it's going to take more time than getting us from 2020 to 2029.
Yeah.
We're still going to keep pushing through.
I agree. I mean, we got all. I mean, just in Virginia, just a discussion on the Confederate statues. Leave them tips alone, as far as I'm concerned, and just put some more stuff in the middle, to make it look like the world that we exist in today. Because the history is the history. That's just my personal opinion. But one of the bills in the House now is to give that responsibility to localities.
Right.
So then localities can make that decision. But then to me, that's still creating a divide.
Because
In
certain
your local
localities are
community.
right, exactly.
So in your local community, then so we got a state divide, we got a federal, state, and local divide. It's going to be hard.
It's going to be a slog.
Yeah,
still.
we got to slug through it though, because we're here.
Alvean, you get the last word.
I'm sorry. Normally I'm deep. I'm not going to be when I answer this question. I'm counting on the Kardashians and Taylor Swift
Put Beyonce in there.
to get. No, I mean Kardashians and Taylor Swift to make more brown babies so that it is the
So that it
direction
won't have
of the nation.
Oh, you weren't joking.
I really mean it. Like, just keep making these brown babies so that brown becomes the new beautiful by all kinds of standards, since, to be honest, Instagram and social media is raising this generation anyway. So all we need to do is to get all of these very popular celebrities to keep making half brown babies, and we're going to change the way everybody feels about race.
And
I'm
now
just
in
saying.
the United Kingdom,
I'm
there's
just
a
saying.
relationship
Exactly.
The tanning of America,
Let's
you're
do
gonna
it.
have to find something else to divide us
Tanning of
over.
America.
Because if we're all tan, pick something else to be upset about.
Yes, ma'am.
That's all.
My
I'm saying.
beautiful round table. Okay, I got to tell you guys one last thing. We had a caller that said that Accomack County is not a sanctuary city. According to Shore Daily News, December 19th, Accomack County passed Second Amendment resolution stopping short of declaring sanctuary status.
Well, thanks for that clarification.
Thank
And
you.
I'm glad to know
Appreciate
that
it.
they were listening.
Exactly. So we appreciate you. Thank you, caller, because we didn't get a chance to get to her on the phone. So, but
Great.
I appreciate all of you. Thank you,
Thank
round
you.
table. So
Thank
you like
you.
Thursdays? We good with
Yes,
Thursdays?
we good.
We're working it? Okay.
We're
all
committed.
right. Fantastic. So, audience, I have a huge favor to ask. Unfortunately, something went really wonky with our email addresses for the Another View eView newsletter. So everyone who signed up for the once a week reminder of our show topics, I need you to go to anotherviewradio.org and sign up again. I'm so sorry. It will only take a moment, and we want to keep you in the loop on upcoming shows. And if you haven't signed up, why not do it now? Thanks so much. And while you're there, check out our podcast of previous broadcasts. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, so check us out. Next Thursday on Another View, and Another View history lesson on how laws have led to racism and what we can do to promote racial healing. Our theme music was composed and performed by Jay Sennett. Lisa Godley is our show producer. Todd Washburn is our audio engineer. And Maddie McCormick answered our phones. Thank you, Maddie. She's an intern with us. Absolutely. I'm Barbara Ham Lee. We'll see you next Thursday at noon for Another View.